Hello all, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to Philly.net CodeCamp 2022. And we are here to showcase our session on Bring Your SharePoint apps to Microsoft Teams. So the concept behind this session is we have been developing lot many applications on SharePoint because SharePoint is here since almost 2 decades, exactly 21 years now. And then we have been developing various solutions on top of SharePoint. So in this session, we will see how we can use the some tips and tricks to bring all of your SharePoint apps inside Microsoft Teams. And then we will see how those are tightly integrated and then again how those integration now works. All right, so the agenda for this session is we will see the Microsoft Teams and SharePoint story, how they are better together, and then we will quickly touch upon the Microsoft Viva Connections, which is a hot topic nowadays, and then it helps us to surface the SharePoint home site as a app inside Microsoft Teams. Then we will see how we can bring our custom solutions developed using SPFx web part to Microsoft Teams, as well as how we can create the messaging extension, which are SPFX solution, but serve as a messaging extension inside Microsoft Teams. And then we will see how we can build the meeting app with SPFX, and then how we will create the S, that means adaptive card extensions as a Viva connection extensibility with SharePoint framework. So before we start, quick introduction. Myself, Nanddeep Nachan. I'm Microsoft MVP for Office Apps and Services. I'm from Pune, India. Author of couple of books on SharePoint framework as well as SharePoint hybrid. And onto the right hand side, here are a few of the social media handles to get in touch with me. And with me today is Smita.
Hello, all. Myself Smita Nachan. I am from Pune, India. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Development category, and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm author of one book, and these are some of my social handles by which you can get in touch with me. So let's go ahead and see what is the Microsoft Teams and SharePoint story.
So this one is a very basic slide, but still wanted to take in front of our discussion to set some kind of an context. So usually whenever we create a team in the background, it creates a SharePoint site. So let's say, for example, if we start with creating a demo team kind of a team inside Microsoft Team, in that case, it will create a site specifically for that. And then again, inside of that, there will be a mapping for the channels. So for example, general channel documents are stored generally into the shared documents, and then again all of the folders gets created for the public channel and so on. For example, if we create the private channel, in that case a separate site collection gets created, and then all of the security measures are done. So this one is a very quick introduction of how those two are together. So coming to the SharePoint side of it, we have various apps that we develop onto SharePoint. So since, as I said, we have been using SharePoint for almost 21 years now, and we have developed many solutions. So obviously those are not the modern SharePoint solutions, but as we are making our journey into the modern SharePoint, the modern era, we are making efforts, or at least everyone is making those efforts to get all of their apps into the modern SharePoint or into the modern era. And then again we have this Microsoft Teams, which is at the center of everything, which is at the center of every communication. So in this session we will specifically target how we can use the SharePoint apps that we have developed so far and then port them as a Microsoft Teams app. So now that we don't have to take an extra efforts to create something specific to Teams, but we can easily use the solutions that we have been developing so far on SharePoint apps and directly take them to Microsoft Teams. So first of this is Viva Connections, and then how we can use that. So before we directly jump into the Viva Connections, let's have some introduction.
So let's see what are the hybrid working and challenges we have. So the many organizations across all industries have shifted to remote and hybrid work, and this change represents the new opportunity and the challenges. So organizations are finding a ways of how to make this new world of work more sustainable for their people, for their employee, and this requires transforming additional models of work and culture. So hybrid work is becoming a new norm across the many industries. So creating a great hybrid employee experience is more challenging than ever. People feel stressed and disconnected, and the employees want to feel more connected. Leaders need a modern way to engage with their employees. IT needs to quickly enable modern employee experience without replacing their existing systems. And to address these issues, companies requires a new approach and a new category of technology solutions, which is called EXP, Employee Experience Platforms. So, to meet these needs, Microsoft has created Microsoft Viva, an EXP employee experience platform that empowers people and the teams to do their best from virtually anywhere. So let's have an introduction of Viva. What is this exactly the Viva? So the Microsoft Viva brings together the communications, knowledge, learning, resources, and the insights into an integrated experience that empowers peoples and the teams to do their best from anywhere. So it is powered by the full breadth and the depth of Microsoft 365. It is experienced through Microsoft Teams and other Microsoft 365 apps that the people use every day. So the Microsoft Viva includes the four modules: the Microsoft Viva Connections, Viva Insight, Viva Learning, and the last one is the Viva Topics. So let's go one by one. So the first one is the Viva Connection. It provides a curated, personalized, and a company branded experience that centralizes relevant news and the conversations. It provides a single entry point for employee engagement and internal communications, and this can be referred to as a gateway to your digital workspace. A Viva connection is built on Microsoft 365 capabilities like SharePoint to provide a curated and branded employee destination. The second one is the Viva Insights. So the Viva Insight gives individuals, managers, and leaders personalized and actionable privacy protected insights that help everyone in an organization thrive. It brings the new personal well being experiences, insights, and recommended actions from the workplace analytics and my analytics into the flow of people's work in Microsoft Teams. The third one is the Viva Learning. So the Viva Learnings helps makes learning a natural part of both every employee's daily work and the company culture. So with Viva Learning, employees can easily discover and share everything from training courses to micro learning content. And the last one is the Viva topic. So the Viva topics enables you to harness the knowledge of your organization and connect people to that knowledge. So the Viva Topics is like a Wikipedia with AI superpowers for your organization. When employees click on a card, a topic page appears with the documents, videos, and related people. The Viva Topics also surfaces information from the third party services like a ServiceNow and a Salesforce. So there will be a fifth model soon added based on Ali.io.
So now that we have a good understanding of Viva, so let's get into the Teams mode and see like how we'll be able to set up those Viva connections. So these are these 8-step process outlined by Microsoft through which we'll be able to set it up quickly. And then we will just spend 5 to 7 minutes on to getting this prepared. So as you can see onto the screen, almost steps until 5 are more onto the SharePoint front, and then we have 6 onwards, mostly onto the Teams front. So first thing here is prepare your internet. So for example, if you have or if you are using SharePoint already, it is good, or you can start using SharePoint or rather a modern SharePoint to build your internet. So through that internet, you will be able to surface the content to your users, bring that content closer to your employees, and then again by sharing the news, related articles and everything. The second major thing here is setting up the home site. So whenever we have any of the communication site created in your portal, probably we can set that as an home site, which will be kind of an entry to your digital gateway of your internet. So we can just set that home site, and then once we have the home site, we will have two capabilities there. First one is called as the global navigation, and second one is the Viva Connections. Probably let me just walk you through this as I talk. So this is the home site that I have created. Oh, sorry, it is taking some time. This one is my Teams, but okay, this one is my home site, which has been created using a communication site, and you can see that this one is surfacing all of the news as well as all of the dashboard and the other content. So this is the place from where we'll be able to place the content very much near to our employees. And then once this particular site has been set up as the home site, we will get two extra features here. First one is called as a global navigation, and second one is this setting up the Viva connections. So quickly, let's get into the global navigation. So by default, this one will be turned off, and until this one is turned off, this app bar that we have here will point you to the SharePoint home page, or SharePoint start page rather. Once you enable this global navigation, you can just apply the logo, have some kind of a title, and then you can define your navigation. So maybe you can just click onto the edit global navigation, and from here you will be able to create the navigation. At the same time, for each of the link inside of this navigation, even you will be able to create audience targeting so that you can bring the relevant content to those set of people. Once you are done with that, at least this global navigation will be available to you. And once you click onto this icon, you will be able to run through that global navigation. The second major thing that will happen when any of the communication site has been promoted as a home site is this setup Viva connections. So once you click here, firstly, it will give you an option to create a dashboard. And since I already have a dashboard created, I see the view dashboard kind of an option. So this dashboard is nothing but a set of cards, and then again we can bring the relevant content again closer to the employees by using this. And again, from here you can see that we have few of the out of the box cards available, but at the same time in this session we will see how we will be able to develop few cards which are based on SharePoint framework. So here are few of the examples of the cards which have been developed in SharePoint framework, and then those are placed inside Microsoft Teams. So this one was a general steps that we can do onto the SharePoint front. So these are till uh, step number 5. Now that let's get into the Teams and see how we'll be able to surface that home site as a Viva connection app. So for that, firstly, you need to go to the Teams admin center, open up the manage Teams from here, and then just search for Viva Connections, and then that app will be available to you. By default, this app will be blocked, just that you will have to allow this particular app. And then again, for example, if you want to make any customizations on top of it by specifying your name, by adding your logo, adding your colors, in that case you can do that. So this one was about having the app enabled. The second part to this is a permission policy. So with this permission policy, you can control like what apps you want to make visible to your team users. So if you want, you can create your custom policy for Viva Connections, or you can go ahead and just keep adding the Viva connections inside Microsoft app that we have. So if you want to restrict just to Viva connections, you can do that. But right now, since Viva connections is directly available from Microsoft, this one is allowed since we have option selected as allow all apps. So this one is quickly the permission policy. Second thing is we need to define the setup policy. So in the setup policy, we can control like how the apps are made available to the users within the Teams app. So again, here, if you want, you can create your custom policy, or you can directly go ahead and start using the global policy. So in this policy, what we can do is we can install the app for Viva Connections, and then we can just add that particular app here. And again, once we add the Viva Connections app into the left rail or left Teams app bar, we can use these arrows to move it up and up or down. Again, it is recommended to have Viva Connections at the top because this one will be a landing experience for your users. And then once you do that, this is how the Viva Connections will look like. So this is nothing but an entire SharePoint home site, which is surfaced inside Microsoft Teams. So the earlier solution from Microsoft was just to have this SharePoint home site or any of the SharePoint site as a read-only kind of a thing. But with Viva Connections, we have a capability through which we'll be able to make edits, as well as even we'll be able to share the content, we'll be able to create the content right within Microsoft Teams. So the main agenda here is like we don't have to leave Microsoft Teams for to have a look at the internet to get the updates, but at one place, which is Microsoft Teams, we'll be able to get all of the updates at one place, which is Viva Connections. So at least that was first about how we can surface SharePoint home site itself as an app inside Microsoft Teams, which is called as an Viva Connection kind of an experience. So with that, let's get into the next thing and see how we can develop few of the things on SharePoint, or rather the things that we have developed so far onto SharePoint framework on SharePoint, how we'll be able to port them in Microsoft Teams. So as a modern SharePoint experience, we always have developed our apps inside SharePoint framework. And then again, we will see what are those tips and tricks through which we'll be able to make them available to Microsoft Teams. But before that, let's get into the details of SharePoint framework and see like what is mean by that.
In the last few years, the SharePoint framework has been very popular and has become the first choice of modern SharePoint developers. So the SharePoint has become a richer with its very release, and eventually modern SharePoint has evolved. So the SharePoint framework plays an important role in customizing modern SharePoint. At the same time, it also supports the classic SharePoint. The SPFx solutions are developed using open source toolchains, modern UI standards, and JavaScript libraries frameworks like AngularJS, React.js, Knockout.js, and many more. So the SharePoint framework SPFx is a page and a web part model which provides full support for client-side SharePoint development. It offers easy integration with SharePoint data. Also, we can extend it to Microsoft Teams. So with the SharePoint framework, we can use a modern web technologies and the tools in our preferred development environment, could be a Windows, Linux, or Mac operating system, and build productive experiences and apps which are responsive and mobile ready. We can also use the modern JavaScript web frameworks, tools, and libraries to build SPFX based solutions. So, the SPFX is generally available in SharePoint Online. It also supports on premises from SharePoint 2016 onwards. So, you have to please note that in order to start using a SPFX in the SharePoint Server 2016, you will need to install SharePoint 2016 Feature Pack 2 on the server. So on the other hand, for the SharePoint Server 2019, SPFX is supported out of the box without any installation of any prerequisites.
So that means we'll be able to use the latest and greatest functionalities of SharePoint framework onto the SharePoint Online. And then we will see the solutions which we have been developed onto SharePoint framework for modern SharePoint, how we can bring them into Microsoft Teams. So let's have a quick look at the SPFX or this SharePoint story. So we have been using SharePoint mostly to store our data, so that data can be in the form of list or libraries. So for example, if it is a list, we can create our own content type and then define our information architecture, how we want to store the entire information in those lists. The second type of data which can be stored here is the documents. So we can create a document libraries, we can place the data inside of that. So that means we have used data, or at least some recognizable amount of data which we have in SharePoint. Now that we just have the data, but how to get that data outside of SharePoint, and then again start showcasing them into a more presentable manner to our users. And there SharePoint framework or this SPFX come into the picture, so that we can create few kind of an experiences through which we'll be able to show some kind of a data, like maybe a read-only kind of an data to SharePoint framework web parts, or even we can make SharePoint framework data or SharePoint framework web part itself as a configurable to the property panes, and then based on the configurations set by the administrator or the site owner or the page owner, we will be able to show the data in the manner which we want to present. So that means SharePoint framework has got more capabilities now to surface the data as we want. But again, that is not just the end of it. It is not only limited to SharePoint itself. So even though we hear about a word called as SharePoint framework, but nowadays it is not at all limited to SharePoint. So SPFX is going beyond that, and then we can create the enterprise ready kind of solutions with SharePoint framework. So again, as you see onto the screen, at least there are few or four major areas in which we'll be able to develop the solutions using SPFX and use them throughout. So firstly, that with Microsoft Teams, which is a main focus of discussion for this session. So we can use Microsoft Teams kind of solutions built with SharePoint framework. So we can build Teams tab using SPFX. We can create Teams personal app using SPFX. At the same time, we can create the messaging extension for Microsoft Teams using SPFX web part. But again, not limited to that, but with the recent releases of SharePoint framework versions, we can also create the meeting experiences with SharePoint framework, as well as even we can create the Viva Connections extensibility model with SPFX. So we are going to have a demo of each of those sections that we have talked about. But at the same time, SharePoint framework can leverage the benefits from Microsoft Graph. So Microsoft Graph, we can connect to various apps and services across Microsoft 365, and then we can make those Graph API calls to get the data or maybe to manipulate the data across those all Office apps and services. And then we can interact with all of the data points across Microsoft 365. The third point here is even we can call this Power Automate from SharePoint framework. So let's say, for example, if you think we are limited to certain kind of an functionality which cannot be done from SharePoint framework, in that case, we can still go beyond. We can call the SharePoint framework, the Power Automate from SharePoint framework. At the same time, even we can maybe call the Azure functions itself from SharePoint framework. So we have got a lot many extensibility points now. And lastly, we can create add-ins for Outlooks using SharePoint framework. So with that, let's get into more details and see how we'll be able to build Microsoft Teams extensibility with SharePoint framework, or rather how we can extend SPFX app to Microsoft Teams. So benefits of using SharePoint framework as a platform for your Microsoft Teams is like the development model is very much similar to the SharePoint framework web parts, and then any of the web part can be exposed as a tab or a personal app inside Microsoft Teams. And then SPFX also offers different scoping options to expose SharePoint framework web part as a custom tab or a personal app. And then your tab will be executed in the context of underlying SharePoint site behind that specific team. And this means that you can take advantage of any SharePoint specific APIs or functionalities in your web part. So let's start with this one by one. So this one that we are starting is very basic, that how we can build the Teams tab with SPFX. So with the release of SharePoint Framework version 1.8, Microsoft had introduced the possibility to build tabs in Microsoft Teams using SharePoint Framework solutions, which means any of your SharePoint Framework solutions can now be easily ported to Microsoft Teams without any need for external services. The value which is specified into the supported host property, it decides like how the users will be able to work with your web part. So for example, if you specify that property as a Teams tab, in that case, the SPFX web part that we have, we will be able to surface that as a tab inside Microsoft Teams. The second option, just beside this, is this how we can build personal app with SPFX. So again, as a part of SharePoint Framework version 1.10, we also have got some more capability to publish our SPFX solution as Microsoft Teams personal app. So personal app in Microsoft Teams is nothing but an app that user can install and then can be accessed through the left rail of the Microsoft Teams app. And then again, for example, if we just supply this supported host as this Teams personal app, which we will see in some time, we'll be able to see that app being available to us as an personal app, and we can see that. So for that, purpose, probably I can quickly go into my Microsoft Teams team and then let's see. So now that we have this Microsoft Teams team, and then again here we can just click onto this plus tab to add any of the app. And then one of the apps which is available to us right now is the custom SPFx web part that has been created and added. So I just have added one web part here called as Teams tab, which is nothing but the custom SPFx solution or the custom SPFx web part. So this one is a pretty simple web part. It doesn't do anything. But the power of this is whenever it is deployed within the context of Microsoft Teams, it can pull up the data related to that Microsoft Teams team. So for example, you can see that it was able to get to the location of to which team it has been installed. At the same time, same code or the same web part when it is deployed onto the SharePoint site, in that case, it can able to pull out all of the information about SharePoint site. So depending on the context in which it is running, it can detect that context and start playing with that. So whether it is a Microsoft Teams team or a SharePoint site. At the same time, even for example, if you want, we will be able to add that as an personal app inside Microsoft Teams. But since this one is very basic, I don't want to pay more attention onto that. Let's get into some complex things that we have. So thirdly, that we can use this SPFX web part as a Microsoft Teams messaging extension. So with SharePoint Framework version 1.11, it supports to host our SPFX web part as a Microsoft Teams messaging extension. So this offers more power to the developers so that they can now extend those SPFX web part to Teams as the messaging extension. So firstly, messaging extension is nothing but whenever we compose any of the message onto Microsoft Teams. So at the bottom part of the composing window, we see few icons, and then again once we click on those icons, so let's say for example if I click on new conversation, so here we do have few icons, and then once we click on any of the icon, let's say for example I click on Giphy. So once we click on that, we have few icons coming up or few images coming up, and once we just click on any of the image, we can send that to our users. Okay, so this is how this messaging extension work. But now that we are going to see how we'll be able to create our own messaging extension. So here we have created our own messaging extensions. I call it as a Planet Explorer, because this kind of an extension will give you the capability through which we'll be able to see some information or see some basic details about any of the planet. So this one is nothing but a SharePoint framework web part, which is showcasing few of the planets that we have. And this one is a static information. I will show you in the demo from where it is coming from, but this one will be just information that we want to present to the users. Once we click on any of the icon there or any of the planet there, it will make a call. Miss, right now this app is not working. I'm facing some issues with this, but luckily I do have a working version of it here. So once we click on that icon or that planet, it will that information will be sent to a bot, and then bot can respond back us with some more additional information about that planet. So this is how we'll be able to build the or maybe bring in the SPFX solution that we have developed as a messaging extension. So with that, let's get into some more details of, for example, if you want to create this kind of an extension, how we can go ahead with those simple SPFX web part. So this is the Planet Explorer kind of an solution that we have built up. So this one will show all of the planets. Once we click onto that, the information will be sent to the bot, and then bot can reply back with the messaging extension information that we have selected. So majorly we will need four things here to work with. So first one is a bot itself. Then we will need the Microsoft Azure web app to host the bot, or if you want to do a local debugging, even you can use ngrok or ngrok, whatever you call it. And then thirdly, we will need this SPFX web part where we have the major workable part of it. And then lastly, we will need Microsoft Teams where we'll be hosting the entire solution. So let's get into it one by one. So firstly, a bot. So means Earlier, we used to use this bot channel registration, but now that those are deprecated, so going forward, we will have to use this Azure bot. So this Azure bot are nothing but we can develop those enterprise grade conversational AI experiences. And then again, at the same time, we can maintain the control of our data. So in the Azure portal, we can directly go and start creating the Azure bot. So probably what I can do is I can go back to my Azure portal. Let me just open it. So when I had developed this particular solution, it was the uh, channel registration was available. So this particular solution is based on to the channel registration. But as of now, for example, if you go for creation of any of the bot, the bot channel registration is not available. So obviously you will have to create an Azure bot. But for this demo, we are using just this bot channel registration. So probably let me just get into that resource group, and from there I will be able to explain it to you. All right, so I guess this one. Yeah. So here we have the bot channel registration, or right now this one is replaced with Azure bot. Once you just create this Azure bot or bot channel registration, in that case you can just go into the configuration and then again configure your messaging endpoint. So this is the endpoint where your bot will get the messages and bot can reply back to the messages. And then second thing, or second important thing here, is this channels. So once you get into the channels, you can channelize your bot to various other channels. So for example, if you want to make it available for Alexa, for direct line, for email, for Facebook, line, Telegram, but for this, we have enabled it for Microsoft Teams. So these are the two major things that we need to do here. Again, one thing is once you get into the configuration, just note down your app ID. Again, maybe let's click on manage and create your client certificate, sorry, client and secrets, or if you have got a certificate. So in this case, I just wanted to keep it simple. So I just have client secret. So just note down that key, and then that one will be used for configuring our application. So this is how we can just create a simple bot, and then that bot will be available to us. Second thing is based on your preference, either you can use Yeoman generator for Microsoft Teams, which is a Node.js based solution, or either you can use Visual Studio solution to create the bot. Okay, because right now we just have created a bot which is a plain bot, but nothing inside it. So now that we are going to create some kind of a custom logic inside of it, which will serve that particular Azure bot. So either you can use your Teams or Visual Studio based on your preference. So let me just show you the code that I have got for this. So I simply have created this bot solution. So this one is the bot solution created with your Teams. Entire code is written using TypeScript, and then the major function which is being developed here is this handle Teams messaging extension submit action. So what it will do simply is whenever someone will click onto a planet uh, in the SharePoint framework web part, it will just pass on that information of which planet has got clicked. And then we will be able to get that selected planet here. What we simply do is we will create an adaptive card. We will fill in the details of the planet inside of that adaptive card, and then we will simply send that adaptive card back to Microsoft Teams. So that means we are responding to the user clicks by sending them the adaptive card, which one will be action based on the messaging extension. So this is the method in which we create that adaptive card. So we just have this payload for this adaptive card wherein we just show like what kind of information we want to show for that planet. For example, the image, the distance from the sun, and everything, for whatever we see onto the screen. So all those information we have it here. Then we just compose that messaging extension, sorry, the adaptive card for the messaging extension, and we just simply send that to Microsoft Teams. So this is the simple mechanism in which it works. So the third thing that we will need here is a hosting for this entire thing. So which one will come through the ngrok or maybe through the web app. So we can either create a web app to host this entire solution that we have created with your teams, and then once we have that, the place where I just have shown you in the bot, we can just configure that link. So for example, if it is hosted onto the Azure website, you can specify the messaging endpoint as the link to or the URL to the website, or if you are using simple um, local version of the ngrok. So in that case, you can specify the ngrok URL here. So once you are done with the creation of the your teams, or at least the bot solution for your solution, in that case, you can go ahead and just deploy that to the Azure. So right now we are done from the bot point of view. Now that let's get into the SharePoint framework point of view. So let's say, for example, if you have any of the web part which you already have developed, and now that you want to make it available as a solution, as an messaging extension inside Microsoft Teams. So firstly that we can create this solution either at least onto the SPFx version 1.11. And then secondly, that we need to extend the Teams manifest in the SPFX solution with something called as an compose extension. So let me just go back and show you the SPFX solution that we have developed. So this is the SPFX solution that we have, and from here you can see that this one has been developed with SPFX version 1.11. And then specifically, I wanted to go into the manifest JSON. Here we have very simple configurations, nothing complex. But the major thing here comes from the manifest JSON, which is available inside Teams. So this manifest JSON defines how our SPFX web part should behave. So in this case, we want to show it as an configurable tab or configurable or static tab or a bot or messaging extension. So in that case, we are just simply showing it as a compose extension, which one will be a messaging extension inside Microsoft Teams. And then we are making a reference to the bot that we just have created. And then whenever the composing message compose extension will be hit from the user, in that case, that bot will trigger, and then the code which we just saw we created for the bot will get triggered, and then it will send the adaptive card to our teams. So this is the only solution that we have here. Then again, we do have this planet JSON, which is our customized kind of a database available for storing the information about all of the planets. So this is a simple JSON that we have, which is which has almost 8 to 9 or 8 to be specific um, planets, and then we are showing that information when the user loads the SPFX web part through the messaging extension. And then lastly, this is the place where we are showing that entire information um, into a dialog kind of a thing. So whenever we click on this icon, so the dialog comes up, and then the entire information is read from the JSON. But again, in your case, probably it can come from any of the database or any of the external system. But in this case, we are just keeping it simple, reading it from a JSON file and showing it here. So this particular part of the code is responsible for that. And then again, once we click that, we simply see like where this web part is hosted. For example, if it is hosted as an inside Microsoft Teams as a messaging extension, we simply pass that information about the planet which was clicked by using this statement. So this statement will just invoke your uh, bot, and then that bot can get into the database of planets, get the information, and share that adaptive card onto the Microsoft Teams team. Right. So this is how the solution is simple. So again, for example, if you have any of your SharePoint framework web parts created, you will be able to easily uh, adapt them into the Microsoft Teams messaging extension. All right. So again, a simple thing for the deployment is, again, we don't need any kind of a complex deployment onto the Microsoft Teams. Simply just deploy your SPFX web part as a messaging extension, prepare your SPFX package using the Gulp bundle, Gulp package solution, and just deploy that SPPKG into the SharePoint tenant level app catalog, and then just upload the zip teams folder to Microsoft Teams so that it can detect that this is the web part that it has to invoke whenever the messaging extension will be hit. And then once user clicks on that messaging extension, it will show up the web part. All right, so that was the demo that we wanted to cover. Now that let's get into a few more things like how we'll be able to build the Teams meeting app with SPFx. But before that, let's get into some theory of what is mean by Teams meeting apps, and then let's move into how we'll be able to create those with SPFx.
So the meetings enables collaboration, partnership, informed communication, and shared feedback. So the meeting app can deliver a user experience for each stage of the meeting life cycle. And the meeting life cycle including a pre-meeting, in-meeting, and post-meeting app experiences. So depending on the attendee status. So there are three distinct participant roles in a meeting: organizer, presenter, and attendee. So you can enhance your meeting experience by using the meeting extensibility features, and these features enables you to integrate your apps within the meeting. So for the pre-meeting app experience, with the pre-meeting app experience, you can find and add the meeting apps. You can also do pre-meeting tasks such as developing a poll to survey the meeting participants. Then in-meeting app experience, you can engage the participants during the meeting by using the apps and the in-meeting dialog box. So the meeting apps are hosted on the toolbar of the meeting windows as an in-meeting tab. Use the in-meeting dialog box to showcase actionable content for the meeting participants. And for the post-meeting app experience, so with the post-meeting app experience, you can view the results of the meeting such as poll survey results or feedback.
So this is one kind of an example which you see on the screen, which we are going to demo how to build this kind of an experience with SPFX and then put that into Microsoft Teams as a Teams meeting app. So let's get into the demo, see the demo first, and then let's move into the code. So right now, what I will do is I will just open up the Microsoft Teams team. I will go to the calendar so that I can set up any of the meeting. So I'm just going to the calendar. So I will just select any of the meeting slot, available meeting slot. I will just type the meeting title. I will invite few of the attendees to this particular meeting, and then simply I will send that meeting. So now that we have scheduled a meeting, but we want to create some kind of an in-meeting, pre-meeting or post-meeting kind of an experience. So what we will do for that purpose is, since the invite has been sent, I will come back to this meeting one more time, and then at the top of this, you will see a few of the apps being added here, and we do have a plus icon here. So we'll just click on this plus icon to add a tab. So from here, we'll be able to add any of the app as an tab here. So let me just search for meeting. So we have this app, custom app created as a meeting questionnaire. So this particular app will help you to create some kind of a pre-meeting experience so that the attendees of the meeting can ask some question before the meeting starts, and then the presenter of the meeting can cover those questions during the meeting. So we'll go ahead, click on add to get this app added to our meeting, and then it will take some time to validate that. We will just click on save, and then this particular app is available as an Teams meeting app experience. So this one is nothing but the pre-meeting kind of an experience because the meeting has not yet started. So all of the attendees of this particular meeting will be able to access this tab once they will accept the meeting, and they will be able to see all of the apps which are added to this meeting. So this one is a pre-meeting app experience. So here what we can do is any of the attendee can click on a new question, and then that particular user can ask the question. So like right, so we will ask whether will this meeting be recorded. Okay, and then we will just save this. So what will happen is that this particular question is here, and all of the attendees as well as the organizer of this meeting will be able to see this question. So each of the attendee who is part of this particular meeting will be able to see this experience. They will keep on adding these questions. And then when the meeting will start, this one will be act as an in meeting kind of an experience through which the organizer as well as the attendees can look at all of the questions which are submitted related to this meeting, and they can discuss on that. And then again, lastly, that for example, if you want to create a post meeting kind of an experience, even over there you will be able to create a similar kind of an SPFx web part and show probably a summary of what kind of a decision has been taken through your meeting. So this one was a quick demo of how we'll be able to create the meeting app kind of an experience with SharePoint framework. So with that, let's get into the code and see how this one works. So firstly, let's going to the package.json, and from here you can see that this has been built with SharePoint framework version 1.12. And then specifically, I want to go into the manifest.json just to show you that we are not hosting it as a Teams tab. So the component type here is a simply web part. So again, we do have a manifest JSON created under Teams folder, which can define how the experience of this particular app should be inside Microsoft Teams. So here we want to make it available as in configurable tabs so that this one will be available for the users to get added as a tab inside your meeting. And then again, what happens is like we do have this service through which we can um, create or connect to the source where we are storing all those questionnaires. So as we discussed before that whenever there is a Teams team created, there will be a SharePoint site in the background. So what we simply do is for example, if it is a direct meeting, we store everything onto the root side of SharePoint. And for example, if it is a channel meeting, we store the information onto the SharePoint site, which is as a backend for that Microsoft Teams. So this one will be a simple list wherein we store the information about the meeting ID, title, description, the user who created the question, his email, as well as the modified date. And then from here, we'll be able to get the questionnaires, and then we'll be able to showcase those questionnaires here. At the same time, whenever someone clicks new question, we use this method to add that question. So this one is a simple implementation. Again, coming back to the React component, which is responsible to show this everything as well as the new question. So this one is again a simple React component which can read or invoke this SPO service to get all of the meeting questionnaires that we have as of now, and then we simply add them using this activity feed kind of a thing onto the web part. So as an experience, user will be able to see that the person who has asked the question, and then again, for example, if the attendee want to add a new question, we have another component created here for the for the addition of the question. And then simply that component calls this method to get the questionnaire and then add that questionnaire into the SharePoint list. So this one is again a very basic example of how you will be able to create those meeting apps kind of an experience with your SharePoint framework. So let's coming to the last part of our session, that how we will be able to build the rich experience for Viva connections that we just have seen as the first demo with SharePoint framework. So now that developers can extend Microsoft Viva connections for building engaging kind of an experiences with widely adopted SharePoint framework. So SharePoint Framework version 1.13 introduced support for building solutions to customize and extend the Microsoft Viva connections. And then this experience is called as adaptive card extension, or we simply just call them as SACE. So these are the new SharePoint Framework component type, which enables developers to build rich and native extensions to Viva connections, dashboard, and SharePoint pages. So these adaptive card extensions, or SS that we call, that uses adaptive card framework with declarative JSON schema to generate the UI. So the developer can focus onto the business logic rather than thinking of complex JSON building on their own. So this ACE supports the type of templates as you can see onto the screen. So this one is a basic card template which will just show you some kind of a title, nothing else. But then a button through which we'll be able to open up a quick view. And then we do have a image card template which can show the image along with some text. And then again, this one is actionable. And lastly, we do have a primary text template through which we can show some title, some description. At the same time, we can place few buttons there, and then those buttons can open up any of the quick view. So this view which we see here is called as a view, and then again a card view specifically, and then again the one which gets open onto the click of this button is called as a quick view. So the experience will be same that you can just go to the command prompt and type u@microsoft/SharePoint. Only thing that what you will do differently is that the client side component that we want to create, we will select the adaptive card extension, select the whatever kind of an template we want to use, and then use that to develop your solution. So with that, let's get into our last demo and see how we'll be able to build those Viva Connections extensibility with SPFx. So before I jump into the demo, I just want to or jump into the code. I just want to show you the demo for that. So this is the kind of a dashboard which can be placed onto the home page. And then again, this one is a Microsoft Teams experience. So once you click on to this see all of the dashboard cards will be visible here. And this one is one of the card that that is developed with SPFx. So once you click, so this particular card is showing all of the groups that we have. So this one with this kind of an cards will be able to track like what are the groups in the organization that someone is a part of, someone who owns or the member of those groups. So this kind of a solution will be easier for you whenever it comes to the group expiration policies. So that, for example, if you're very much unsure like uh, which members we are owner of, or sorry, which group we are member of or owner of. In that case, it won't be surprise to you. You can just place this kind of an cards onto your dashboard, and from here you'll be able to track all those groups. So this is the simple experience that we have. Once you click onto this view my group, it will open up another quick view. So this one is a card view that we have, and then this one will show you the quick view. So again, in this, it will show that these many are the groups that you are owner of, these many are the groups you are member of. Once you click on maybe any of the category, it will show you all of the groups where you are a member, and then it can show the group name, group title, sorry, the description, and then the visibility of that group. And for example, if that group is associated with SharePoint site, there will be a SharePoint icon present, and then once you click on that, it will open up a SharePoint site. At the same time, for example, if this group is associated with any of the Microsoft Teams team, in that case, there will be a icon, Teams icon. Once you click on that, it will open up that Microsoft Teams team. So this is kind of a simple experience that we get with this kind of an adaptive card extension. So now that we are just going to look at a simple implementation of how this can be done. So here again, we do have another web part, which will just show you the implementation of how to create these simple web parts, and then probably how to call these quick view web parts or quick views on the click of the buttons. So for that, again, I will go back to my development environment. Just give me one moment. This is King Fuzzy. All right. Okay. All right, just give me one moment. Yeah, so now that I'm back to my virtual machine, and then this is the code that we have. Oops, sorry. So this is the code that we have, and then in this code, as you can see that we just have few things as we saw from the previous implementation. So here is again the service through which we'll be able to connect to our groups and get the information about the group which is owned by the user or where the user is member of. And then again here we have few things like the view. So this is the view kind of a thing through which we'll be able to have the definition of our S, so which extends from the base class, which is called as a base adaptive card view, and then again this one has got two things, properties and the state, and then the viewing data. And from here we'll be able to render the things that we want. The major thing here is like on action. So what should happen whenever any of the button gets clicked. And then from here we can define whether we want to open up any of the other card view or we want to navigate to another link. Again, for example, if it is a quick view that we want to open up, in that case, this is the supporting JSON or the adaptive card that we have, so that we don't have to think too much complex, but we can be able to create those simplified experiences with the adaptive cards. And then again, we do have these card extension. And then again, in this particular card extension, this one is the basic card that we have. So whenever your card will be placed onto the SharePoint or onto the dashboard, this is the experience that we will get. And then again, here one thing that we need to note, that we have to register each of the view or each of the quick view or a list view that we define, so that with this particular string we'll be able to refer that in all of the other occurrences of the card view or a quick view. So this one was a very simple experience that we have designed. I don't want to take more time because we are already running out of time, I guess. So this was a quick demo. So only thing that we want to showcase here is, like, since we have been developing very very complex or very good solutions on top of SharePoint framework, but it is not just limited to SharePoint. We can go beyond and add them as a Microsoft Teams app, so that we'll be able to utilize our efforts not just in SharePoint but in Microsoft Teams as well. So here are few of the resources. For example, if you want to get into more details of developing this web part as a Teams messaging extension, or build the Teams meetings app, or configure the Viva connections for your Teams desktop, or even if you want to extend that with by building the adaptive card extensions. And then again, the code which I just have shown you. So here are few of the code samples available. So all of the codes that I just have demonstrated you is available onto the PNP repositories, and this one is available onto my personal repository. And with that, thank you very much for having us. If there are any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us onto our social media handles. Yeah, thank you very much. Back to you.